Hello and welcome to PM Personality Profile. My name is Nana Nsakwa the Fourth, and this is my favorite part of the show when I get to talk to people and find out what their life is about. But then when their life is about humility, integrity and honor, then I'm very biased and very excited. In these days where the whole world is full of materialism, if you find a citizen whose ideals are the proper ways of life, it's nice. But who am I talking to? I'm talking to a guy who's been recognized by the World Bank that indeed in the whole of Africa, he stands out exemplary in social contribution to his state. I am talking to Ibrahim Tanko, head of programs of Star Ghana, and indeed he's turned Star Ghana into something else. Senior brother, I'm in your house to be inquisitive.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I want to say congratulations on your award.
Thank you very much. Yes. And, welcome to my home.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let us sit, and I want you to take me all the way back to Navrongo. So when I come back, folks, the conversation begins. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. And you know, I'm a bit biased when I do interviews like this. You know, I get a bit biased and I get very excited. And I always announce that, you know, if you have any young ones at home, this is the time to get around the television, because they're going to listen to stories about somebody's life and they walk away from the TV better than they came to sit in front of. So I'm sure by now you got it. Now, why am I excited? I like to talk to people who, in their own good way doing something, get recognized from somewhere that, hey, you're doing something very good, and therefore come and let me recognize you. Now, April this year, my friend, my senior brother, you know, Ibrahim Tanko Amidu, programmer and leader of Star Ghana, you know, won the Global Partnership Award for Social Accountability. Now, every year, they'll go around all these huge continents and select one person. Now, the whole of Africa, nearly 2 billion people, they zoomed in on him. That's why I'm biased. That's why I'm excited. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Dada.
So I just want to start from there. I mean, how does it happen? A letter comes to the office or a phone call comes? Because I want to share any excitement.
Well, I think they ask around for nominations. Mm-hmm. So first of all, I didn't know I had been nominated. But the first inkling I got was when they sent a letter asking, you know, for me to provide some details. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, wow, what's this? And then I didn't hear anything again, so I thought it was the end of the whole issue. And coincidentally, the last day of Star Ghana, mm-hmm. when we had held this very big event with civil society organizations, parliamentarians, mm-hmm. we just closed the function, and then I got an email from Washington, the World Bank, saying that congratulations, you've won the award for the Africa region. Wow. And when I shared it with my colleagues, we were all whooping and jumping for joy because it was a recognition of our joint efforts. Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Now, I share with you too. I share with you too, because we're becoming a society where, you know, things like honesty, integrity, you know, faith, loyalty is all being wiped out, and we're narrowing too much on money, and material things. Yeah. So I am glad when somebody's recognized, you know, for something good, which benefits society. So, you know, well done. Okay. But I'm going to go all the way back. Where did life begin? Accra, somewhere in Accra, or further away from Accra?
Well, my story is a very interesting one.
I want to hear it.
Partly because my father was a policeman. Those days they used to call them the escort police. Mm-hmm. You know, these were the uneducated policemen who provided mainly guard duties. But like every policeman, you know, he was moved around quite a lot. Okay. So my father, or I come from Boku in the Upper East region. Okay. But I was born in Akwetia, in the Eastern region. Started my primary schooling at Efiokuma in the Western region. And then continued at Palugu in the Upper East region. So that was my primary education. Wow. Before I went to secondary school in Navrongo.
Okay.
Yes, for the 8 years.
I mean, it tells you how diverse the country is. Maybe that's why we're unable to fight.
Exactly.
We're so intertwined, yes, exactly. But it's a good thing. How was secondary school in Navrongo?
Well, it was really, I think, where my ideas, my values were formed in addition to whatever I got from home. First, because we had a very inspiring headmaster in the person of one Collins George MacDonald, a Scot.
Okay.
And he just kept on pushing the boundaries. A very interesting aside, when we were in Form 4, he brought 2 blind students to the school, to the 6th form. And we're all wondering how were these 2 blind students going to cope. And he challenged everybody in the school that it is your duty to help them, you know, to help them integrate. Several years down the line, the 2 blind students he brought, one of them is the current Minister for Chieftaincy Affairs, and the other is Dr. Corey, who is also a legal expert. This was somebody who just took that decision. He was bringing the blind students to the school because they met all the qualifications. And they weren't going to a separate school. They were coming to be part of the school.
Wow.
That was challenging. We produced our own food in the school. So that was one area where you realize that if you push the boundaries, if you challenge yourself, you would achieve results. So MacDonald was indeed somebody who helped in my formative years. And then we also had a lot of very young teachers. My Form 5 coincided with the fights against the Achampon regime when the universities were closed down.
Okay.
So you had lots of these students who came over to teach. And again, this whole issues around accountability, about rights, about standing up for your rights, you know, came up. And so I think by the time I got to university, I had already formed some ideas about how I thought life should be.
You see, I'm listening to how the school would do its own farm and grow food, and how you have to take responsibility because, you know, these 2 are visually impaired. Yeah. That's all. Yeah. You know, they don't need any sympathy. No. They just need a little bit of guideline. Yeah. We seem to be losing that. We're just focusing on the numeracy. You know, we're just so focused on you can read and write, and everything outside of that, we are not paying attention.
Exactly. And I think that was what I'm saying, that MacDonald, you know, challenged us, and I'm so happy that I went through school under him. But again, he had this students' council, which existed in most other schools. But this was a council that really could challenge the headmaster. He made the atmosphere such that, you know, you could challenge, of course, in a respectful way, but there was nothing like yours is just to obey.
Wow.
You know, we made the furniture for our classes.
Really?
Yes, we did. Ask anybody who was in Navrongo Secondary School from 1970 up to 80, and they will tell you we had a place where, and it wasn't just for students who were studying carpentry. Every class took a turn at the carpentry workshop.
Wow.
Every class took a turn at the rice farm. Every class took a turn, you know, at the dam where we were planting this vetiver grass and those things. So it was really holistic education, education as it should be.
Yeah.
Not focusing on A, B, pass, Q, poor, pass the exams, but really who do you turn out to be?
At the time, was it fun, or at the time you think, oh, this is just too much and I can't wait to get out of here? Because sometimes, you know, as children, you get out of a structure and you realize, whoa, this was so helpful for me. But sometimes when it's going on, you think, oh, this is a waste of time. I don't know how it was then.
Well, I mean, like for every young person, especially when we had to go to the school farm, we saw it as really, you know, why are we in other secondary schools weren't doing it? Why was this white man forcing us to go to this thing and etc.? And even at some point we were like, if it was in his own country, would he do something like that? Now on hindsight, you realize that this was the biggest contribution he could have, made to our development, you know, and to nurturing leaders who don't see a problem and say, why? But who see a problem and say, what can we do? You know, so it was that attitude of take responsibility, do something, you know. And it's a pity that several years after he piloted, if I would use that word very respectfully, the integration of visually impaired students in a school of medicine, nothing has been done. We're still saying that inclusive education is on the drawing board. But he has demonstrated that it's workable. It's worked. One of them is a minister. One of them is a PhD holder. So what more evidence do we need to start this process of integrating students or children with disability in mainstream schools.
Because I think Okuapamine and School for the Blind, but generally, you know, I mean, Accra Academy, you know, nothing like that happened. But I think it should have happened. And you see, I think also, even for you, you then know to understand not to exclude people.
Exactly.
Because you've lived.
Exactly. You know, you need to live experiences. You don't need, when you read experiences, you don't internalize them as much as when you live them. You know, I think, was it Mao or one of them who said, go out to the countryside, be with the people, live with them, work with them, and then you know what are the realities of their everyday experiences. And therefore, when you are talking, you know what you're talking about.
Making decisions. That's impressive. That I think is long overdue and we should do.
Exactly.
But how about your mom?
Well, my mom was the typical northern Ghanaian housewife, so she stayed at home, or she traded. She was a trader in those days. And one interesting thing about my family is that my father, as I said, was not literate in terms of English, mathematics, etc. But as a result of the exposure, he saw the value of education. So he made sure that out of his 15 children, because we had 2 other mothers, so to speak, only one wasn't educated, and that was because the person didn't live with him. But he insisted everybody, and he took a personal interest. And he went with you at the end of the term to school to hear what your grades were, you know. And we had a very interesting tradition in the family. You know, if you came from school, he would ask you to come and read to him. And sometimes the only way he could tell if you were not doing it well was if you stammered or, you know, you hesitated. So we learned to kind of recite things that we had chewed off, you know, because we would be tired if you attempted and then you were stammering, etc. But I think, again, the lesson I took from that is it takes more than government and education authorities to educate a child. It requires the active interest and participation of parents at home. I think Obama said it is not the school authorities who will come and switch off the TV and say, do your homework. It is not the government that will come and say, why did you do this way? It's the parents. And I think there is a big role, and as we craft our education policies and etc., we shouldn't lose sight of the very, very important role that the home and the parent plays in the education of the child.
One thing I find about illiterate parents back then is somehow, even though they didn't go to school, always seem to push their children, you know what, you at least go and learn how to speak English. Now we move into this generation, and they've done some sort of schooling, not too much, but they have absolutely no need of why their child should go to school or not. But they've got some JSS, you know, under their belt, which you would have thought they would have been more eager that, do more than what I could do. Where are we losing it?
I think it's a factor, I mean, a result of so many factors. One is, I think, for our parents, that generation of Ghanaians who had just lived the colonial experience, they knew the value of education, where it can send you, you know. I think right now we're beginning not to see it as really the impetus. It's more like, okay, make money, get connections, etc. But in those days, it was like, I want my child to go forward, and education is the key. I think that's one of the lessons. The second, I think, is that the connection between school and community, in my opinion, has weakened. In those days, you know, teachers could follow children to the house to find out why. Could talk to parents and say, this child is beginning to underperform, you know. Parents could go to school and, you know, see. But right now, maybe because of we are so busy with everything, you know, education is the responsibility of the school. You know, I come home and I pay the fees, that is it. So I think that connection between school and community is quite important and should be something that we look at.
So, university.
University was very interesting. I went to Legon in 1980.
Marxist by then?
Well, budding Marxist. Budding Marxist. Because
there must be equity.
That was a very interesting point in the life of Legon, I mean, from my perspective. You had all these very strong characters, Professor Folsom, Chachu Chikata, Andra Shakur. And so almost every week there was a lecture by one or the other of this. You had the Legon Observer that was constantly challenging people, being very provocative. So it was a very interesting time to be a student. And then I was reading administration, accounting. And I said, why don't I challenge myself to stand for elections? You know, here I was, somebody from a school, northern Ghana. I didn't have too many schoolmates there, etc., etc. School of admin people were known to be the bookish type. You know, it was the lawyers and those in the law school who were peace signs who traditionally stood for elections. But I decided to contest. And the interesting thing is that, and please forgive me, but my campaign managers were actually Honorable Doa Jahu, who is now the Speaker of Parliament.
Now that's exciting.
Yes, and Honorable Bid Ziding.
Okay.
So those,
they were my
campaign manager. And guess who my opponent was? Honorable Asamo Boate. You know, so I became the SRC president of Legon in 1981. And right after the election, 31st December occurred. You know. So the universities were shut down for us to go and do task force and etc. So I actually started my leadership as the regional coordinator for Greater Accra for the Students and Youth Task Force.
Okay.
Our offices were then at the Regional Coordinating Council.
PDC or CDR? Or
I didn't do CDR. But it was the Students and Youth Task Force.
Okay.
And I think we spent 4 months at home, you know, cutting cocoa from the hinterland, you know, helping to mend potholes, doing all those things. At one level, I think it was a way of introducing students to the realities of life, you know. And at another level, I mean, students felt that, well, so after all this, what next? You know, so we did the task force 3 months, went back to school. So I was the SRC president for the 81-82 academic year, and then after that, moved on.
Challenging?
Extremely, extremely challenging.
There's a wild Marxist youth against a very strong, head of state in charge at the time.
Exactly, exactly. I think first of all, there is no better way of learning how to be a leader than leading students. Every decision of yours will be challenged every step of the way. So you have to learn to communicate your ideas, to sell your ideas. You have to learn how to almost negotiate positions, that it is not a zero-sum game, but it is something that you need to, negotiate, discuss, and come to a solution. And of course, you needed to be extremely patient. In '83, we went through this food shortages in the country, extreme crisis, and we had the Rollins chain and etc. And so what used to happen in Legon was that the workers from Medina, Okponglo, etc. would come to the cafeterias, buy the food, and by the time students came out of lectures, there was no food. So I decided to introduce this advanced booking. So you you buy a booklet for the week. In the morning, you fill in if you want to come for breakfast or lunch or dinner, you fill it and then drop it at the Porter's Lodge. So at least they knew how many people were coming, they reserved. So if you came with your counterfoil coupon, you had your food. Brilliant idea, isn't it?
Let me take a break here and come and listen to it.
Okay.
But at least at home, once upon a time, there was massive food shortage in this country. You queued up for kenke, and you queued up for bread. I mean, you queued up for, name it, everything. And everybody had a big collar in their neck, and it was called the Rollins chain. Stay tuned, I'm coming straight back. Well, thank you very much for staying, and whoa, what an interesting and exciting gentleman. Sometimes they say you see my glory, but you don't know my story. And that's exactly what I'm here to pick, talking to Ibrahim Tanko Amidu, leader and basically, the organ grinder at Star Ghana. And we'll come and talk about Star Ghana, and you understand why. But now we're talking about your food stamps.
Yes. So yes, we had this brilliant idea. We thought everybody should buy it into rates. It guarantees you a meal after lectures in the afternoon. Makes planning very easy for the university authorities. The opposition came from my own hall, Commonwealth Hall. The JCR met and said one of the hallmarks of vandals is charging. That's struggling for food, Those who jump on top of others, they are said to go by air force. Those who go under people's feet and then suddenly emerge in front of the pantry, they are the submarine, the Navy people. And those who just struggle in the queue and finally get there, they are the army, And they said if you don't charge, you don't get appetites. And they were extremely disappointed that a vandal could be the one who would introduce a policy that would kill charging. And so the JCR resolved, and be it resolved, that they were completely against the system. And that was it. So it took a lot of negotiations and persuasion and etc. before we finally got Vandal City to buy into it. But it meant that if they had said no, the whole architecture, the whole plan would have come crumbling. So those were some of the highlights. Mm-hmm. The other one was actually getting to the end of my term of office was when, the student movement started turning against the PNDC. Mm-hmm. And then we mounted 2 alutes, protesting. One was the medal of the judges. The second was we thought that, the space for citizens was gradually being reduced. And again, in terms of the debates that took place before even the demonstrations went on, was again something that highlighted the vibrancy of the student movement, the quality of the debates in the distance. You had Kwesi Prempeh and co in Commonwealth Hall. You had lawyer, we used to call him Dini. He's now the chair of the National Democratic Party.
Is it Mr. Portovi?
No, the chair, this Mrs. Konedo's party. He's the chair.
Oh, okay.
But so you had all these people on campus, and it was really, really challenging, but I think very inspiring to be the leader of the student movement at that time. But
normally, from SRC, you'll be, varied into politics, so you seem to stay away from politics.
Yes, and that's the question everybody asks me, because all my peers, my contemporaries, from Honorable Dua Jahu through to, Asamoah Gbartin, but I think that it's not only in competitive politics, in partisan politics, that you can make a difference. I come from the north. On a daily basis, I see the challenges, on the ground, but also see what can be done, even without being in a political position to address them. I did my national service in Bolgatanga, and after the national service, I decided that, I was going to stay back and see what I can do. So I worked in Bolga for 3 years with the Regional Development Corporation.
Okay.
And then I moved on into development work. And that was where it all started, with all this work with development, with social accountability, and etc.
I see you have a lovely family. Normally I stay clear of families, but I must venture. Is it a high school sweetheart, or was it after high school?
Well, I was in university in those days, but she was in the secondary school.
Yes.
In those days, being a university student carried a lot of weight.
So that was a pulling power.
Oh yes, one of the, And so anytime we went home on holidays, we worked with our shirt collars raised high, because we were so few in those days, in Baku, and of because everybody knew everybody. And that was where our relationship started, and it continued. So we've been together for 30 years plus now.
You made the right choice.
I did.
4 lovely daughters?
I have 4 kids, 4 biological children, a boy and 3 girls.
Okay.
But I also have 4 other children who live with me.
Ah, that's nice.
Yes.
That's nice. Give back.
Pardon?
I say give back to
give back
to humanity.
And you know, when we define the nuclear family in Western terms, your wife, your children, your biological children, I think it doesn't take account of who we are as a people. The nuclear goes beyond you and your wife. The nuclear involves all those who were critical in getting you to be where you are today. So if you were my friend, or you have been a friend from childhood days, you cease to be a friend and you become a brother. And so if your child is living with me, or my child is living with you, he or she is part of your nuclear family. That friend who stood by you, who has been with you from your childhood, is part of your nuclear distance. Because nuclear, in my, by my definition, are those that are nearest you, not just your wife and children.
Well, it says that a child is born to a family rather than to a parent, isn't it?
And people say it takes a community to bring up a child.
Well, congratulations once
Thank
again.
you.
Now, how did Star Ghana come about?
Star Ghana is a very interesting animal. It's not actually an organization. It is a program set up by 4 of the country's donors: the European Union, DANIDA, USAID, and DFID, that's UK. Now, they pooled their money into one fund. So instead of each of them running separate programs, they decided to put everything together into one fund. And that fund is called Star Ghana. So Star was a $36 million program, 5-year program, to support civil society organizations and parliaments to ensure greater accountability and transparency in our governance. But it's not the first of such pooled funds. It came after 2 other basket funds. You had the Rights and Voice Initiative, RAVI, and then you had GRAP, that's the Ghana Research and Advocacy Program. So Star Ghana is a third of those lessons. And the main aim actually is to improve or increase transparency and accountability in our governance.
Have we understood the role of civil society as a country, as a people? Do we understand the role and importance of civil society?
I don't think we have. And if you look at the discourse, we have tended to focus on just one part of civil society. Civil society actually represents everything that is not part of the state and part of the market. So if you have women in Akwatia, in the Eastern region, who process palm oil, coming together to see how they can access markets, do whatever, that association is a civil society organization. If you have a youth organization in the north that is focusing on traditional issues, it is a civil society organization. But we've tended to focus on just NGOs. That's the part of civil society that has been linked to the donors and the development industry. And we say, oh, civil society organizations don't have a right to do this. Civil society How can you tell a citizen that he or she doesn't have a right to be part of the governance of a society? You can't. So we've tended to focus on the NGOs, and in that way belittle and really not utilize the potential that lies in a very active and vibrant civil society. So no, we haven't understood it enough, and we haven't used it enough. I
mean, could you add it to your program to educate us the importance of civil society? Because you need, it's an invisible arm of government who really check.
Exactly.
They haven't given you 4th, 5th, 6th arm yet, but I mean, there's an arm in there somewhere.
Yes.
And I think with us, because we're so divided politically, it would have been a good place to go and find solace.
Exactly. And I think the importance of civil society is in its even role as intermediation. Now, we've been talking about corruption in this country. And people say, oh, but why is it that even people in the rural areas are not angry about JIDA or whatever? You know, people respond to things that affect their day-to-day realities. If you went to the north and you talked about maybe, for example, the way the fertilizer subsidy program is being implemented, and perhaps, you know, people are selling the fertilizer on the open market, which it shouldn't be, it's not coming on time, you would be able to get the people in the villages asking those questions. Because without the fertilizer, they wouldn't listen. So yes, you may not get them talking about JIDA, but you can get them talking about how do we clean up that system. So it is through all those local actions that you can build up to a national action against corruption. But if you start with a national thing and think that that will resonate at the local level, we might actually end up. Maybe that's why we've not made that traction. But if we are able to get parents to be excised about the quality of education that their children are getting, husbands, you know, talking about the maternal health for their wives, farmers about fertilizer, and maybe widows in the urban areas talking about the JIDA, then you have the action coming from different sides, and therefore we are able to achieve the kind of impact that we want to achieve.
That holistic.
That holistic, bringing everybody together, but everybody seeing that this is what is in it for me.
It's a good point, because at the moment we're trying to get everybody to believe in what is bothering me.
Exactly.
I'm bothered about JIDA, therefore you bother about it. And he's probably thinking, even if he had succeeded, I think I'm getting it.
Yes, exactly.
Let alone that it's failed.
Exactly. And I mean, we're talking about this National Sanitation Day, and I said it's a brilliant idea. But what would it take for me to get up from here and walk to the Tesco market to go and clean a gutter? You know, that motivation, that incentive is not there for me. But if we decentralize it and we say that, okay, the assembly wants to see widows living in this neighborhood, what do we want to do? Then we can say we will come together and make sure that the water that lies at the roadside, you know, we open it up. Exactly. You know, it cleans up the place, it does, etc. And so it's from those local actions that you build up to national impact. And the Americans, you know, realized when they said all politics is local. All politics is local in the sense that if you don't reduce it to the least common denominator that everybody can relate to or people can relate to in their different ways, I'm afraid we'll not be able to get the kind of traction that
you missed the boat.
Exactly.
And I think we've all missed the boat. I mean,
well, in some areas,
yeah,
yes.
we've all missed the boat. We're not very good at localizing.
Exactly.
We're not good at localizing. So is Ghana going to continue, or are you done with your program now?
Well, the first phase, which was for 5 years, ended in April this year. The second phase has been approved, but the contracting processes are still ongoing, so it might be that around August or September we'll have the phase 2 coming in.
Same objectives, or are you changing for the second phase?
I think, because now I can't speak for the donors,
of course,
but I think that given what was achieved in phase 1, we might want to look at a step change. So you've gone as far as this. So what do you want to do next? What are the new challenges? Because the situation in Ghana is not static. New issues have come up. New ways of organizing have come up. New actors have come up. So how do we engage with that? And when I talk about new actors, social media has come to change the way we organize. If you look at Occupy Ghana, if you look at this Doomsday Vigil, in the past it just took it required an NGO, a big NGO, to come and say we are mobilizing you to do etc. etc. Doomsday Vigil, 2-3 people, Facebook, whatever. You got these people out in the street. So how do we incorporate that into the ways in which we are seeking to improve the quality of social services in the country?
You're opening our eyes to so many things. You see, that's why I told my guests that, look, get the children, because by the time they walk away, they realize that they live in a new world. It's true, though, because, I mean, to organize such a rally, you know, you would have needed some militant people, you know, backing up and down for months. One little tweet and we are all out. And we are all out. The other thing is women empowerment.
Yes.
And I know Star Ghana does a lot, you know, for women empowerment. It's another area which frustrates me because almost every society where the women are advanced in education or anything, automatically the society also advances.
Yeah.
You know, how long does it take for us to realize that, look, it's you know, it solves so many problems. As soon as you educate the woman, you know, she will actually pay for school fees. You don't even have to provide you don't have to provide school fees anymore. She will actually pay for it.
Exactly.
When can we tip this balance?
I think it's tipping, maybe not as fast as we want, but partly it's because, you know, I don't think that the issue of gender equality or women's empowerment is a result of a lack of knowledge. All of us, particularly the educated sections of the society, we know it, but it is that value, the values that we use to live our lives. We don't live them. So we say, oh yeah, but you go to our organizations, you go to our homes, and how do we model those values? I was fortunate in the sense that my mother had 8 children, and out of these 8, 7 of them are girls or females. I happen to be the only boy. So actually my name Tanko is the name that is given to any boy who comes after at least 3 girls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so my actual name is Ibrahim.
I see.
But the Tanko shows that I came after at least 3 girls. So I'm actually a double Tanko in terms of that, you know. So I have spent my life around my sisters and don't see them to be any different from who I am. And interestingly, after my national service, all my bosses, wherever I've worked, have been women. And very strong women too. And so for me, it doesn't take anything to, right from my home to where I work, to see that this is what it needs to be done. But I think it's for all of us to begin to model that. So what you do at home should reflect on what you see outside. How are our laws structured? How are our processes of governance structured? How do we provide opportunities? Look at Rwanda. The whole world, in terms of governance, they have the highest representation of women in parliament. We started this during Nkrumah's time when he used affirmative action to get Mrs. Alassane and co. in parliament. It's gone away, you know. And we don't think that we need to do something extra to empower. But if we are starting a race and somebody is, you know, 100 meters behind us, and we say we should all start at the same time and get to the same finishing point, of course we are disadvantaging those who are behind us. We need to take that into account, and I think that is what we haven't done sufficiently. How do we level the playing field for women to also play their role?
I'm going to take a break here, and when I come back, I'm going to talk to my senior brother about planning, because he's obsessed about planning. Indeed, maybe that's why he's been audited probably 5 times by strong auditing companies, and each time he's come out squeaky clean. I'm not surprised that they will hand over the program right back to him again. But planning, planning, planning. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying, and I hope you are enjoying this thing and you're getting different insights to everyday problems that we complain about. Indeed, problems that we try to solve in our own way, not knowing we're doing the wrong thing, you know. Coming to think of how we have to localize things, break it down, let them own it, and then gradually we can nationalize things. I think that's a good point that I'm going to steal before I leave here. But I know my senior brother is obsessed with planning and social accountability. Can you fault him for that? No. But Ibrahim, did you get it from school, this idea of planning? And I don't want to use obsessed as a bad word.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. I don't want to use obsessed as a bad word, but is this something you picked up from Navrongo Secondary School, or where is that?
Yeah, I think it started from there. The way in which the then headmaster planned the school around, or just started with, this is the vision of what I think a secondary school should be like. And then what would it take? And out of that, so all those things that I said we're doing in school, making our own furniture, cultivating our own crops, or having the vibrant student council, They weren't kind of ad hoc measures that he threw in from time to time. They were part of a plan. And so we, those who have come out of that, are examples of what would happen if you did things this way. And when you look at the challenges that we face in this country, doesn't it boil back to planning? How do we see this is where we want to go to, and therefore these are the steps? And whenever I'm speaking with my colleagues or friends about the importance of being clear about this, I often refer to this quote from Alice in Wonderland, that Alice asked that, oh, these two roads, which one should I take? And the rabbit said, well, it depends on where you are going. And Alice says, well, nowhere in particular. And the rabbit says, well, if it's nowhere in particular, the road you choose doesn't matter. It will get you somewhere. So the road you choose depends on what is the end state. What is the result? Where do you want to go? Now, as a country, I'm not sure we are clear in our minds where we want to go as a country. And therefore, every 4 years, every 3 years, we throw everything overboard, bring these things. And so it is a mismatch of so many different parts. And that's why I think that the first step in really turning this country around is getting back to the drawing table. Who do we want to be as a country? And therefore, what are the things that we would need to do to, We have been talking about the floods. Tragic. Could it have been avoided? Yes. Why haven't we done anything about it? We're already talking about pulling down structures. Is it the silver bullet? We speak about pulling down structures as if that's the silver bullet. As soon as you pull down structures, everything is solved. But the flooding is made up of so many parts. How do we plan our city? How do we resource our city authorities? Who builds? These estates that are springing up, how do they fit in? And so if you don't look at it holistically, then you might be tempted to just tackle the symptom of a problem and not the problem itself. And that's why I think that planning, get the plan right, and everything else, follows. Nkrumah says, seek ye first the political kingdom. I would say, seek ye first the right plan, and all others shall be added unto thee.
How can I not talk about social accountability? It's something that also gets my blood boiling. And I find that since we politicize common sense,
I like that.
You are scared to express any opinion that has common sense, because as soon as it's contrary to what you're doing, it means I'm on the other political side. Exactly. It couldn't mean that I've been to school and I've done logic.
Exactly.
How do we get about that and get social accountability? Because otherwise everything we do is zero.
Yes. I think social accountability, when we reduce it to the bare basics, the minimum, is how do we enable citizens to influence the actions of government? How do we enable citizens to demand accountability from duty bearers? That's social accountability. You can do it in several ways. Citizens audit the work of the assembly, you do participatory budgeting, parliament oversight committees, etc. Now, we are big on talk and small on action in this country. Our constitution, our decentralization program, they all contain whatever was needed for us to hold our people accountable, for us to demand quality services. But it is in the operationalization that you decentralize education, and yet the district director reports to the regional director who reports to Accra. So how can citizens effect changes in education at the local level when they don't control the education director does not respond to them? So I think that whole thing about first enabling citizens to connect with government is very important. Strengthening Parliament's connection with citizens is so very important. After elections, the MPs, some of the MPs think that their role with citizens is done. Don't engage until it's time for the next elections. So I think it's when we are able to get citizens' voices louder, directly, at the local level, at the district level, at the national level, that we can begin to talk about accountable governance.
Let me come in there, Brian. You see, there's something which, I don't know, but we haven't been able to bridge us in our relationship with government. I feel that, let's say, Ministry of Agriculture is so far away. I can't identify with it. Meanwhile, there's a little 1 acre farm in my village which I feel, I need to play a really role in this little farm. But the big one that the whole nation feeds from, I can't connect with that. I just think it's very far. How do we?
No, you're right. Sometimes you look at one small subsistence or maybe small farmer in your village. How are you going to connect with the whole humongous institution called Ministry of Food and Agriculture? But again, it comes back to everything being local. How do you connect with other farmers in your community? And as a collective, as an association, as a cooperative, use that to engage or connect or discuss with the local Ministry of Agriculture. And if it doesn't work, to escalate it. We've talked about Burkina being drier than Ghana, poorer than Ghana, having fewer natural resources, and yet all the tomatoes that we are consuming, or most of it, is coming from Burkina. The vegetables are coming from Burkina. They've now started processing.
And they actually sell it with pride. Oh, this is the Burkina one.
This is the Burkina one.
They sell it with pride.
Sesame seeds, everything. So how have they been able to achieve that when we haven't? When we are richer than them, in a way. Again, they have very strong farmer organizations. Farmer organizations that are then able to connect with their Ministry of Agriculture and demand the services that they require. Ours, if you are not wearing a suit and a tie, you are not fit to discuss policy. And so policies are made by people who have very little connection with the reality on the ground. But I think if we found ways of connecting people at the local level and the local levels aggregating up to a national level, then you can say that Ministry of Agric can connect with you as a farmer through all those intermediary organizations that exist.
Let me divert a bit and come back, because I think I read in the newspaper somewhere that either Parliament couldn't open early because Ghana hadn't supplied them with A4 sheets yet. They were literally waiting for you to donate paper so that the parliamentary services, could start working. Now, I know two things. That true if you donate paper, and two if it was late.
No, we don't donate paper. And our work with Parliament has really been around supporting a number of committees to plan better and to have the resources to implement what they have planned. So we chose 10 committees. Those to do with social services, education, health, etc. Then the cross-cutting ones like the Public Accounts Committee, the Committee on Assurances, and then, of course, with the parliamentary service. So that's the type of support that we've been providing them. So you, as the Committee on Education, what do you want to do over the next 2 years, given the mandate that exists for you? And how can Star Ghana support you to achieve that mandate? So that's the kind of support that we've been providing, but not.
So would that be administrative or financial? So
it's mainly capacity building, and in a way, what do you call it? Facilitating the implementation of some of the actions. So when the leadership of Parliament wanted to move around, because we said one way of moving away from this partisanship is for the leaders to go out together. Let people in Sunyani or Bolgatanga or Wa see you together on the stage talking about national development issues. And they know that, look, it's not, at the end of the day, it's just about partisanship. So we facilitate something like that, Parliament needed to set up a scrutiny office so that if an agreement or a contract was sent by the president to Parliament, at least you had a group of experts who will look at it first and make their recommendations to this. And we facilitated the process of developing or setting up the scrutiny office. So that's the kind of support that we've been. So technical and capacity building, but not A4 sheets.
Well, I've been apologies to Parliament. I've been bashing them for waiting for paper.
Maybe from somewhere else.
Maybe from somewhere, maybe not Star Ghana, but from somewhere else. Education, generally, apart from going through Parliament, do you have a own body that supports education? Or?
Yes, I think big chunk of our funding went to civil society organizations working around the issues of education. How do we make education more responsive? Mm-hmm. How do we connect citizens with the Ghana Education Service for more responsive services? How do we make education, even at the lowest level, more accountable? Mm. How do the head teachers even account to parents for the use of the capitation grants, etc.? So those were the kind of things that we supported civil society organizations and parliament and the media to do around it.
You know, see, the donor fund is coming from Western countries.
Yes.
Now, one of the major troubles facing us is this Western type of education, which by the time you come out of school, you're so westernized, you don't want to have anything to do with yourself, your culture, your history, it's deemed heathenism. And therefore we've turned away from it. I mean, but if you go and borrow the white man's money, he's not going to let you preach to identify, to then know yourself and become that proud African that you are. I mean, how do you strike the balance?
Well, it's for us to walk our talk. Put our money where our mouths, our talk is, so long as others fund our development, they have the opportunity to influence what we want to do and how we do it. Star Ghana was set up by the donors. So as much as we tried to localize it, to make it national, to respond to national aspirations, we also had to take account of the fact that what does the British government or British Parliament expect for the money that they are giving? So if we don't want these guys to come interfering, let us find ways of funding our own development processes. The donors can come and fund a bridge or a road, but there are certain critical areas that I think we should be willing to contribute. If it is we donating 1 cedi every month into a fund that is used to support these kind of actions, let's go ahead and do that. Then we can say we are truly independent and we are masters of our own destiny and we are deciding what we do. But if we don't do that and then we stand on stage and say we are a proud independent country, where is the pride? Where is the pride when our development budgets, even at the national level, is funded by donors primarily? Where civil society actions are funded by donors? So we need to begin to look at how do we fund our own development priorities.
Will our politics or political space allow it? And I always say this, that, I want to make you president, so you go and find probably $10, $20 million to come and fund it. Then I come back and say, well, Tanko, you have 4 years. I'm going to take the power from you, so you go and try again. I mean, have you given this person enough space to do other things, other than find this money that he used for the campaign and find another one for the campaign and find one for retirement just in case he doesn't win power?
I think you're right that the parties have sucked, as I would say, all the oxygen out of the room. Everything has been reduced to NDC, MPP, with due respect to the smaller parties. Everything. The way you cough, the way you run your house, the way you drive your car, everything, But that isn't how it should be. There should be some overarching priorities that don't relate to these parties. I mean, which politics are more partisan than American politics? Where do you have the kind of politics that revolves around money, if not America? Where you need not less than $2 billion to just prosecute a presidential election. And yet, after all is said and done, on Inauguration Day, they come together as America to swear in the new president. Where there is something that cuts across, they come together as America and do it. And it's a sense of nationhood. We are Americans first and foremost. That is what we don't have. What is the sense of nationhood? I was in the US recently, and they had Memorial Weekend, which was to commemorate and remember all soldiers who had died, in the wars that America has fought. It wasn't Democrats, it wasn't Republicans. And even my Ghanaian friends were talking very proudly that this is the day we celebrate our soldiers.
They feel belonging.
They feel belonging. They have Thanksgiving. every American, wherever you are, you go home for Thanksgiving. That is what makes them American. You go to the UK. So every country that has succeeded has been able to rise above the partisan politics.
Rally around something.
Rally around something. What do we rally around? Safe March, how many of us turn around? How many of us even have conversations with our children at home to say this is what Safe March means?
I thought about it and I came up with the answer that it's only the Black Stars.
Yes.
So after they finish playing, then
the sense of nationhood. So
gone.
If we don't talk about that sense of nationhood, the long-term national development plan will not work. If we don't talk about that sense of nationhood, addressing the Accra flooding will not work, because we are looking at it even today. So on social media, people were beginning to look at it as NDC did this, MPP did that. Where we are. So we need to build that sense that this is Ghana. We are proud to be Ghanaians.
Ibrahim Tanko Amidu.
Yes.
I've been absolutely proud, privileged, and very thankful for granting me this interview. But I think we need to come and do a whole one-on-one on the governance of today. Is it even right or wrong? Yeah, I think I'll get the production team. So we come back. Yes, we come back and have a good discussion. But folks, until I come to you next Friday with a different personality, have a beautiful weekend.